So today we're going to be building up the wall of our Japan base, and while we do that, we're actually going to have a little history lesson. It's going to be on the Great Wall of China, and it's one of the 7 wonders of the world. To get this started, the Great Wall's construction started around 2,700 years ago. Imagine that, no TikTok, no YouTube, you're just plowing your rice field all day, hoping the weather's not too bad, and you're just living in your hut. Meanwhile, you're just trying to defend from the invading Mongol hordes from the north. Meanwhile, the Mongols weren't the only conflict at this time in China. The north and south regions were at a conflict. During this period, the internal conflict caused a diminished military and a lack of their resources, as they had been fighting a pseudo-civil war at the time. It's due to a conflict between the Jurchen Jin dynasty that was ruling the north and the Song dynasty that was in the south. It was over broken treaties and an invasion that happened. But the South had no hand in the creation of the Great Wall, so we're just going to be skipping over them, and we're going to be focusing on the North and the Mongols. Mongols were a huge innovator for warfare at the time. They transformed their nomadic hunting techniques of riding up on animals on a horse and shooting them with a bow. The kind of bow they used was a composite bow. If you've ever played League of Legends, think of it as like kiting as an ADC. They would just run back and forth, shoot, and then shoot. They'd go back, shoot, go back, shoot. It's just constantly being out of range of swords and any other weapons like spears, so they would just kind of kite their enemies. They had an army of around 100,000 soldiers. It's not exactly known at the time because it was several thousand years ago, but they would usually be sent in hordes at a couple hundred of them, and they had like a lot of different hordes that were raiding a bunch of villages, so they were able to gather resources like easily. They're kind of like Vikings, if you know about them, how they would pillage and raid. So that's how they got most of their resources, because they were nomadic. They didn't actually have like one home. They were constantly moving. Do what I can only relate to modern day as a drive-by shooting, but it was much more vicious, as they would just run around and not stop. They didn't have to worry about no police or anything. They would just keep going until the people they were hunting were dead. So they were a lot more vicious, and these constant raids of the rice farmers and the nobles, it angered the Qin dynasty. So they started the construction of the Great Wall. Great Wall is a length of 13,171 miles, and it took them over 2,000 years to build. It's estimated about 400,000 to a million people died in the construction, with many of them being buried in the wall itself. It's known as one of the biggest graveyards on Earth. A lot of people died. They weren't in the best living conditions. They were barely being fed enough to work. It was basically slave labor. The wall was built out of materials like dirt. They would pack it down a lot: stone, wood, brick, tiles, and lime. They would even make mortar out of sticky rice. They basically used whatever they could find at the time. But while it worked to stop raiders and allowed smoke signals to alert capitals where they raid, today is primarily just used as a tourist attraction, having about 20 million visitors a year. So Genghis Khan was the leader of the Mongols at this time. He was born around 1100 at Timjin, and in the harsh steppes of what is now Mongol. His childhood was rough. His father was poisoned by his rivals, and his family was abandoned by their tribe, leaving them to survive in extreme poverty. These struggles shaped his resilience and his leadership, and made him become the Genghis Khan we all know. It is estimated about half of 1% of all people on Earth are related to Genghis Khan. That's how much he had an influence at this time and how much he pillaged. Under Genghis Khan's leadership, the Mongols became a highly disciplined and mobile military force. They used advanced tactics for their time. They had a lot of psychological warfare and cavalry attacks. They dominated northern China, Central Asia, and the Middle East. After Genghis Khan died, he was succeeded by his grandson, and he continued to expand the empire. At its peak, the Mongol Empire stretched from Eastern Europe to the Sea of Japan. They really dominated a lot of the world, and as you can see, it really made China have a real threat. It made them build that wall that took them so long and so many lives, when they really should have been using that resources for other things. But he allowed the reopening and secure trades of the Silk Road. Under his leadership, he encouraged cultural exchanges between the East and West, and he spread technologies and ideas, even early forms of global communication. But he caused a lot of destruction, and millions of people died during his conquest. Entire regions were destabilized. He would literally, if you ever seen One Piece, he was kind of like Luffy if you think about it. He would just come in and destroy the whole government that they're like ruling their citizens. He'd take over, and except it wasn't as like happy. He wasn't doing it in goodwill. He was doing it to conquer. But we really don't know where he was ever buried. Uh, he's very divided on history. Some people think he's a great ruler. Others think he was brutal in his tactics and the way he pillaged. But just some history on Genghis Khan. So we've been talking about war and invasions and massive wars a lot. There's a different kind of influence that shaped China, and it came from a man named Confucius. Confucius lived over 2,500 years ago, around 500 BCE, during a time when China was very unstable. They were constantly fighting each other, and there was no unity at all. So instead of trying to conquer land like Genghis Khan, Confucius focused on a different question. How do you create a stable and peaceful society? His answer was actually pretty simple and powerful. He believed that everything starts with relationships. If people act correctly in their rules like a ruler, being just a parent, being caring, or a child, being respectful, then society becomes stable. One of his core ideas is a thing called filial piety, which basically means respecting your parents and elders. This might sound small, but he saw it as a foundation for everything else. If you can't respect your own family, how can you respect a ruler or follow laws? He also emphasized education and self-improvement. Confucius believed people aren't just born good or bad. You become a way by learning, practicing virtue, and reflecting on your actions. So being a good person wasn't about status or wealth, it was about effort and discipline. Another big idea was merit over birth. He thought government officials should be chosen based on their ability and knowledge, not just because they were born into a powerful family. That idea later influenced China's civil service exam system, where people had to study Confucian teaching to get a government job. Even though Confucius himself never gained much political power during his lifetime, his ideas didn't die with him. Over time, they became the backbone of Chinese society for centuries, shaping education, government, and everyday behavior. So while emperors built things like the Great Wall to physically defend their country, Confucius was more focused on building a kind of social wall, a system of values that would keep society stable from inside. And if you think about it, even today, Asian cultures are a lot more respectful towards their elders and everyone in general. See, his teaching still had an impact today. So there's one last guy I want to talk about, and that's Sun Tzu. So we've talked about how Genghis Khan had the military impact, and Confucius had the philosophical impact. Here's where Sun Tzu comes in. He had the strategic impact. Sun Tzu was an ancient Chinese general and philosopher. He is believed to have lived around the 5th century. He's most famous for writing a book called The Art of War, which is still studied today, not just in military schools, but in business, sports, and even gaming. What makes his ideas so interesting is that he didn't focus on the brute force. Instead, he focused on winning intelligently. One of his most famous ideas is the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. In other words, the best victory is one where you don't even need a battle. That can mean outsmarting your opponent, cutting off their resources, or making them give up the fight before it even starts. He also emphasized knowing your enemy and knowing yourself. According to Sun Tzu, if you understand both sides, you can predict the outcome and avoid unnecessary risk. Basically gambling every time you go into conflict. Another key idea is adaptability. He compared warfare to water. Water doesn't fight obstacles directly. It flows around them. Armies, he said, should be the same way. Flexible, unpredictable, and able to change plans quickly. This is exactly the kind of thinking that made armies like the Mongols so effective. Even though they came much later, a lot of what they did, speed, deception, and psychological warfare, lines up almost perfectly with the ideas and philosophies of Sun Tzu. He also talked a lot about deception, making your enemy think you're weak when you're strong, or far away when you're actually close. This kind of misdirection could completely change the outcome of a battle. So when you look at things like the Great Wall, it's one approach to build something massive to defend it, but Sun Tzu would probably say, the smartest defense isn't always a wall. It's understanding your enemy so well that you never let them get the advantage in the first place. The crazy part is, even though he lived over 2,000 years ago, there are still people using his ideas today. Not always in the battlefield, but just in their everyday life. Anyways, comment down below if you want more episodes like this. I thought this was a good one-off, but we can bring it back with a different topic next time. Make sure to like and comment and subscribe, guys. I'll see you in the next one.